All right. Beat Yakuza 7, Yakuza Like a Dragon. I'm in my Snuggie. I just beat it last night. I went to bed. I woke up, took a shower. Let's talk about Yakuza 7, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Rigatoku 7. I said this in the video. I said it. They're going to try and rebrand it. This is happening. This is the Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare sequel, Modern Warfare 2. This is their moment. This is what they're doing. I can see it. The next Rigatoku game we get is gonna be Like a Dragon. I also think it's smart that they branded it like Yakuza Like a Dragon, not Yakuza 7, because that creates a different perception of the game. People are now going to perceive it as a spin-off and not the sequel to like Yakuza 6 plus 1. No, it's Yakuza Like a Dragon. Like Dragon Quest. Yeah, that's right. So it creates the perception. People see it on the shelf, they go Yakuza Like a Dragon. They do not think sequel to Yakuza 6. So it's acceptable for it to be presented and perceived as a spin-off because it's a different genre. It's a turn-based JRPG instead of a real-time beat-em-up RPG like the Yakuza series normally is. So I'm telling you, the next Rigatoku game we get in English is going to be called Like a Dragon whatever, right? So it's coming. This is their moment. What's the biggest, look on the cover of the game. What's on the cover? Yakuza, tiny, tiny print, Like a Dragon. Huge name on the cover. So, it's happening. I can see it coming. I'm woke to these things. So, beat it, slept on it. I liked it. It's a good game. I mean, there's not really any Yakuza games that are bad. I know I say, the first one, the PS2 game is bad, but, whatever. But it's pretty much, it's a safe bet. It's a safe series. You're not going to have one that's bad. I wouldn't know how to rank it in terms of the rest of the series. I almost feel like, it's an orange in an apple bucket because it is a different genre. It is a different gameplay style. It is still recognizably Yakuza. It is a JRPG Yakuza game, but it's a completely different animal. So it almost feels like, you can rank the other games. It's like Yakuza 2, Yakuza 5, Yakuza 0, down on the list. I don't know where I would put Yakuza Like a Dragon on that list because it's completely different. It doesn't belong on that list. It doesn't go on that list. I really like it. It's a good game. Not game of the year material for a couple reasons. First of all, Bug Fables is still holding it down. Bug Fables is holding it down. I don't care that it came out in 2019 on the PC. It came out on consoles in 2020. That means that's its actual release date. Fuck you. Bug Fables is still holding it down as my game of the year. But even, the game isn't, a 10 out of 10. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be a 10 out of 10 to be game of the year. If it's if it's your game of the year, that's I'm not saying Bug Fables is the best game. Actually, I kind of am. It's not. I'm Bug Fables is my game of the year. If this is your game of the year, cool. Here's the thing. It's a 10 out of 10 Yakuza game. It's maybe a 5 out of 10 JRPG, right? Let's talk about I'll split it up gameplay and then story, right? So I'll talk about the gameplay because there's a lot to talk about, and then the story on the back end, which I will be spoilery about it. So first things first, play another RPG. Play another RPG besides Persona 5 You fucking illiterates. Not every turn-based JRPG is like Persona 5. Just because that's the only JRPG you've ever played doesn't mean everything is like Persona 5. This isn't complicated, okay? Yeah, your brain is going to go, oh, just like Persona 5, because you've never played another JRPG before in your fucking life. So you have no frame of reference. But please pull your head out of your ass and realize that this genre has existed since the 80s. And, like, theoretically, you could argue it goes back even further than that, all the way back to tabletop gaming and D&D. So, no, some delayed-ass PS3 game released in 2018, 17, did not invent fucking JRPGs. Not every JRPG is fucking like, oh, I just played Dragon Quest XI. That game totally rips off Persona 5, you guys. Oh, it's just like Persona 5. Play another RPG. Play another fucking RPG. It's so fucking annoying. Yes, every turn-based JRPG shares elements of being a turn-based JRPG. Not every first-person shooter is aping Halo or Call of Duty. You're gonna sit there and play Doom and say, oh, it's just like Halo, because Halo's the only first-person shooter you've ever played. That's what you're doing when you play Yakuza 7 and say, oh, it's just like Persona. Yeah, in so far as all JRPGs are like each other. Just like every RTS is like Doom 2. Every first-person shooter is like Wolfenstein. It's called a genre. But, like, please have some sense of fucking perspective. Because it's really fucking annoying. It's the same annoying as such and such as the Dark Souls of video games. That's what you're saying. You're saying such and such is the Persona of video... Like, play another game. Play another fucking game. Play a game made before 2007. Please. Play fucking Dragon Quest. How about that? It's almost like they're inspired by... it's called Like a Dragon. Ichiban is constantly saying, I fucking played Dragon Quest as a kid. They actually paid Square Enix to have the rights to say Dragon Quest and not some, like, knockoff, you know? I'm almost surprised they didn't compare it to, like, Shining Force or something, right? No mention of Shining Force. Kind of disappointing, considering Shining Force was Sega's answer to Dragon Quest. Or Phantasy Star. No, yeah. I think it's Phantasy Star. I'm gonna do a quick fact check on that one. Is it Phantasy Star or Shining Force? It's Phantasy Star, yeah. Phantasy Star was Sega's answer to Dragon Quest, so it seems almost weird to me that there's no reference to Phantasy Star, but it's all about the Dragon Quest. I mean, like, whatever. They can say Dragon Quest, but they can't say Famicom. That's what's funny to me. They can say Dragon Quest, but they can't say Famicom. You know what they can say is Sega Dreamcast and Sega Master and Game Gear. The characters name drop the Dreamcast and the Game Gear because those are Sega games. Those are Sega consoles. But they don't want to name drop Phantasy Star on Master System. You didn't need to compare this game to Dragon Quest. It could have been Phantasy Star. So that's kind of funny to me. And I mean, Phantasy Star was the Dragon Quest knockoff. Dragon Quest 2 knockoff, specifically, because it had that, like, warrior magic specialist, kind of, like, in-betweeny kind of thing. Party dynamic. I can very easily see, but then again, like, they use their Dragon Quest very well to reference, like, gaming cliches and conventions in the RPG genre where, like, they refer to the party Ichiban, like, I really love Ichiban, how he's always like name dropping, like, you gotta kill enough slimes to level up in life. Let's go to the temp agency and apply for a job there, right? And he's like, this is my party. These are my friends who are like traveling around with me and helping me out. That, like, I've got another member of the party helping me out. A boss at one point is like, your treasure is back. Like, here's the treasure chest. I'm the boss. He literally says, like, I'm the guardian. I'm the boss fight you have to beat to get the treasure. Like, they use their Dragon Quest references very well to frame Ichiban as a classical Western fantasy style of RPG hero in modern day Tokyo, Japan. And that works very well. It's very Earthboundy, where Earthbound was Dragon Quest. Mother was Dragon Quest in modern day, in suburban America. This is Dragon Quest in modern day urban Tokyo, Japan. In terms of the gameplay of the RPG, it's pretty basic, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, wouldn't compare it to Persona, because Persona uses a lot of Shin Megami Tensei staples of being able to change your persona, your demons, in order to utilize different elemental weaknesses and elemental interactions. It's using their version of the press turn system, where you prioritize based on, I'm going to hit this enemy with their elemental weakness to down them, and then I'm going to move on to the next enemy and hit them with their elemental weakness and down them. And that way, once they're all, like, knocked down after being hit by their weakness, we can do the critical hit and wipe out the entire party. That's what you're aiming for. And it's a Shin Megami Tensei game, so it's very buff focused. It's you gotta buff your allies and debuff your enemies. That's always been a staple of the series. None of that is in Yakuza Like a Dragon. You do not have to buff. You don't really have to pay attention to elemental weaknesses, and even when you do, all it does is do, like, critical hit damage. It doesn't have any kind of special interaction. It's very basic. It's baby's first RPG. Like, you could make the combat system that Yakuza Like a Dragon has in RPG Maker. It's not doing anything new. It doesn't have to, obviously. That's not a bad thing. But it's not doing anything new. It's baby's first JRPG in Yakuza 7. It's very... I mean, like, everything that it does have is pretty much just taken from other RPGs. Like, it has the action commands, or timed hits of Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario. It has the job system of Final Fantasy, particularly Final Fantasy 3 and 5. It has summons. Any RPG you can think of has that, but it's also primarily Final Fantasy, espers, aeons, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's pretty it's not breaking the mold. It's not doing something special or unique, because, like, the history of RPGs, turn-based Japanese RPGs as a genre is, it all kind of goes back to, I mean, like, Dragon Quest was the granddaddy of the genre, but Dragon Quest was inspired by Wizardry, and Wizardry was inspired by tabletop RPGs like D&D. So it all goes back to Gary Gygax. All roads lead to Gary. I think the turn-based JRPG system is disparaged by Western audiences. I think unfairly so, because I mean you can say the same, like the kind of criticism that people have against turn-based RPGs is the same criticism you can have against any game, because they're like, oh, you just wait your turn and you press the button and it's like, why do I gotta wait my turn? And it's like, it's going back to D&D. It's taking that system of people at a table with pens and paper and dice. It's a computer emulating that system. But you get, the criticism of like, well, I don't want to wait my turn. Why can't I just hit him now? I'm so polite. I have to stop and wait my turn. Like, it's an abstraction, jackass. There's really no difference between between a turn-based combat system and a real-time combat system like in Diablo. The only difference is the game pauses to give you time to think about what you want to do instead of you having to do it in real time. I mean, like, obviously. So, like, I don't get why the addition of a pause in between your next mouse click makes the difference for you. Like, compare Diablo, which is a real-time RPG, to Dragon Quest, which is a turn-based RPG. What's the difference? Well, in Diablo, if you sit there and don't click the mouse button, the enemy's just going to keep hitting you, and you'll die. In Dragon Quest, if you sit there and don't click the mouse button, nothing happens. The game is waiting for you to decide what you want to do. I don't see why that is the sticking point, because it's the same thing. You click the mouse button, your character hits, and then in the time it takes for you to click the mouse button and for the character to do their wind down animation from their attack and then do the next wind up animation, the enemy's hitting you anyway. You're basically taking turns as it is, just with no time delay to stop and think about what you want to do before the next input. So you can say the same. You can criticize anything by abstracting it down far enough and saying like, oh, Halo sucks. All you do is walk into a room, point the camera at things, press a button, and watch it die. Like, yeah, if you eliminate the complexity and high-level play and player expression capability, possibility from your description, yeah, it sounds lame. Who'da thunk it, right? But I mean, even in the history of turn-based RPGs, there's been innovation and there's been experimentation. Take Final Fantasy IV, which implemented the ATB gauge, which I don't like the ATB gauge because it means I can't take my time. I mean, there's an option that you can, but it makes it almost too real time for me. Like, it's in Final Fantasy VII. I talked about it extensively in my videos on Final Fantasy VII, but the ATB gauge was an experimentation. It was taking the wait your turn system of turn-based RPG combat and adding an element of, like, real-timeness to it, where now it's not choose your inputs, okay, now everyone go, or your turn, attack, okay, his turn, attack, okay, your turn, attack, okay, his turn, attack, which is how it would go. It would either be turn begins, choose, okay, this character, choose your input, 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 go, everyone takes their turn based on their speed stat, or it's your turn, his turn, your turn, his turn, your turn, his turn, right? Or based on the speed stat or whatever it is. The ATB gauge was an attempt to add an element of real-time, like, down-to-earth, almost realism to it, where it's, you wait for the gauge to fill up. Okay, the gauge is filled up. Now you can take your turn. While you're waiting for that gauge to fill up, anything could be happening. The enemy has their own ATB gauge. You just can't see it. But once theirs fills up, they'll do their input. They'll do their attack. So it adds this like this timing, this element of wait of it's still wait your turn, but there's an element of real time timing to it, and that was an innovation at the time. There's fucking Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy experiments a lot, which did the junctioning system, which was like totally completely ridiculous, like the draw system and junctioning your magic to your spells to your stats. It really opened up like a lot of player expression, but it was also fucking really weird and kind of game breaking. But I mean, like, it's that thing of Final Fantasy VII was praised as like, oh, this is the best game ever made. How are you going to follow up on the best game ever made? Fuck it. Throw it out the window and do something completely different so no one can hold you to that standard, because this is totally new. And then Final Fantasy 13. In a white room, the combat of Final Fantasy 13 is an innovation. It is an experimentation. It is trying something new. Anyway. And even stuff like the Shin Megami Tensei series has the press turn system, which prioritizes the rock, paper, scissor aspect of like elemental differences in order to prolong your turn, in order to get more hits in and do more damage and have more agency in the battle. So, you know, the JRPG, the turn-based JRPG, is not cookie cutter. It's not a cookie cutter genre. Even down to stuff like Super Mario RPG had timed hits, and then that carried over into Paper Mario, where every input had every attack had an input, and you can block damage. Like Super Mario RPG was just like, press the A button when you're about to get hit to minimize damage. Press the A button when you're about to do an attack in order to maximize damage. So even during the do this attack, watch the animation take place, they were innovating to add player input. And then Paper Mario took it even further from there by making different attacks require different inputs on the part of the player in order to maximize the damage or even do damage at all. So Really? Yeah? You want to come on up? Come on. See what happens. Yeah, hello. No? Okay. You're not a cuddle cat. No, don't do that. It's not a cookie cutter genre. It's treated that way disparagingly, but it's not. Play another RPG. Read another book. I would say the JRPG system they have in Yakuza Like a Dragon is cookie cutter. It is a cookie cutter JRPG system. It doesn't do anything new. Everything that it does is taken from another RPG. The timed hits, the job system, the leveling system. There's not even anything interesting in terms of its leveling system. You'll have JRPGs that do have the sphere grid, right? That give you some degree of input or customization over how your character develops. Doesn't do that at all. It's just raw stat. You leveled up, extra points in your stats. You have no input over that. It's very generic. It's very cookie cutter. That's not a bad thing. It's your typical JRPG. It's every typical JRPG put into the world of Ryuga Gotoku. of Yakuza. And that's fine. And it's also, I mean, that's fine, but you can tell they haven't made a JRPG before. You can tell. You can tell that they kind of don't know what they're doing when it comes to this genre, because there's some things that are like, why would you do that? Why would you do that, though? Because there's some jobs, like, it has the job system. Some of these jobs are completely worthless. Why would you make anyone a cook? I know you say, like, Zhao can make a good cook. Not really. I kept him as a gangster. Like, I kept him as the mafia class. I leveled him up as a cook. I didn't see any utility to it over him being a critical hit machine as a mafioso job. I didn't see any value to turning him into a cook. Cook is completely useless. That's a job that doesn't need to exist in the game. Hostess, I also found to be pretty worthless. And what was it? Matron? Matriarch, I think. The Naginata. That's also a pretty worthless job. The women get, like, the jobs are also differentiated by gender. The two female party members have different jobs and less jobs compared to the male party members. That's weird. I don't like that. That's stupid. They should all have access to the same jobs. You can rename them if you want. Like, the male characters have the host job. The female characters have the hostess job. That's fine. But it's super weird to me that, like, especially because they frame it as a temp agency. They frame it as you're getting a job as a foreman. You're getting a job as a bodyguard. You're getting a job as a cook, right? Women can't be cooks. Men can't be bondage doms. Can't be BDSM bondage jobs. Men can't be blackjack dealers. Women can't be enforcers. That's weird. I don't like that. It makes sense that there's character-specific jobs. Ichiban has the hero job. Nanba has the homeless job. Zhao has the mafia job. Eri has clerk. It makes sense that there's a character-specific job. This is their unique job that only they can do. That's fine. Separating the jobs by gender doesn't make sense. I don't like that. Not because of the weird... I just mean, like, every character should have access to the same job. There is no reason that the female characters should have less job options, first of all, and there's no reason that it's separated. The male characters should have all the same job options that the female characters have, and vice versa. That's fucking weird. Why would you do that? I don't get that. It really bothers me. And like, there's some, like, the balancing of the moves kind of doesn't make any sense, because there's moves that you get, there's spells, special attacks you get that cost more MP, that cost more magic points, that you get later on. You have to level up in order to unlock it, and on the whole, if you actually do the math, they do less damage than your original move. Like, your standard move will do more damage. The balancing doesn't exist. There's no balance. There's no sense. You can play through the entire game without buffing once. You do not have to buff your team. You don't have to debuff the enemies. It doesn't matter. You barely have to guard. Like, you can waste a turn guarding. I mean, you can argue, like, well, the perfect guard is timing based. If you're not confident in that, you can just guard, but, like, it's not like there's a difference. I have seen maybe it's because it's depending on the equipment, right? But an attack will do less damage if I did not perfect guard compared to when I do perfect guard. Like, they'll hit you and it does like 10 damage. I'll perfect guard and it does like 30 damage. And I'm like, what? They're doing more damage when I'm perfect guarding. That don't make no sense. Maybe it's like based on the equipment, like your normal damage when they just hit you is based on your armor, but maybe like when you perfect guard, it's taking the stats from the weapon? I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense. It's completely asinine, and I don't see any like explanation or consistency to it. So this is clearly not like the best JRPG ever made. This is not the one you go to for that gameplay experience. This is no Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, which I would say, in terms of a gameplay experience, is probably the best JRPG ever made. In terms of balance, challenge, and player expression. Those are the three pillars, really, of is this a balanced experience? Is it fair, but not easy? Is it challenging so that you're not just sleepwalking through the game, but like it's not like just fucking you. Like, sometimes Shin Megami Tensei will just fuck you, but it's balanced. It's a balanced fuck, right? It's gonna fuck you, but it lubes up first. It puts on some lube. It's not gonna raw dog you. It will fuck you, but it's not gonna raw dog you. You know, it is balanced, and it is challenging. And there's avenues for player expression where you can the way you play through the game and the party that you create and the skills that you utilize in your build is going to look very different. You can play through the game with a physical build, with a magic build. Those are your two options. You can have you can have any party of demons that you want. You're going to end up just having the Skellies and Beelzebub, but you can and the Uber Pixie, but you can theoretically you can have Dante. Why not, right? So Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, this game is not. It's not good. It's not a good RPG. It's not a good Japanese JRPG. It's fucking easy. It is ridiculously easy. You don't have, and on one hand, in this hand, that's not a bad thing. You do not have to ever have played a JRPG before in your life to do well in this game. Having a lack of experience of JRPGs is not going to hold you back. Is not going to present a problem when playing this game. And that's a good thing, because it's doing that Super Mario RPG thing of who is the primary audience for this game? Mario fans. You're making a Mario game. Mario games are not JRPGs. This needs to be baby's first JRPG because it's being marketed. It has the Mario name on the cover. This could be someone's first JRPG. Someone who doesn't normally play JRPGs. Someone who doesn't normally like JRPGs. They're playing it because it has Mario on the cover, and they want to play the new Mario game. So you make a what's the term? Accessible RPG experience for that audience. That's also what this is doing. The Yakuza games are not turn-based RPGs, they're real-time action beat-em-up RPGs. So you make it an accessible JRPG experience for someone who, like, the audience might not be used to playing games like this, so you want it to be you want it to be easy. You want it to be, have the kid gloves on. The thing is, Super Mario RPG was made by Square Enix. Was Square, right? This is before the merger. It's always hard to keep it in mind. I just call them Square Enix. I know it was before. I'm pretty sure it was just Square at the time. And the merger happened later. But for convenience in my brain, I just kind of conflate them as the same company because they are the same company now. And it's hard because it's hard to remember that things were different. Anyway, the thing is, like, Square makes JRPGs. They're the Final Fantasy guys. That's what they do. So they knew how to make an accessible JRPG for the Mario audience, for the audience of people who play Mario games and not Final Fantasy games. They had made other RPGs. They made fucking motherfucking Final Fantasy 2, okay? They knew how to make a good JRPG and they knew how to make a bad JRPG. They made Final Fantasy 4, which was a game where breaking the game at a mechanical level was mandatory for beating that game. You had to play dirty to get to hit credits in Final Fantasy 4. That was a game where you had to master it mechanically in order to get to the end of the game. They knew how to make a hard JRPG. They knew how to make baby's first JRPG. You need a practiced hand of a master who knows what they're doing, who knows how to make a good JRPG that can appeal to the JRPG audience, to know how to make a JRPG that can appeal to the non-JRPG playing audience. That's why Super Mario RPG was a good baby's first JRPG. This is not a good baby's first JRPG because it's made by people who don't know how to make JRPGs. They didn't know how to do it, and they were bad at it. So if you're someone who does play JRPGs, you're going to play this and you'll be like, what is this bullshit? You're just going to keep bitching, aren't you? I'm going to feed my cat. So, like, on the one hand, I get they wanted to make the game accessible. But on the other hand, they failed. I mean, like, I guess that's debatable because you do see people going like, I don't normally like JRPGs, but this game's awesome. And it's like, okay, I mean, I guess you can't argue with results like that, but you can make a game accessible to newcomers without making it something where experienced people with the genre can just sleepwalk through it. It's like auto battle. Oh shit, use a healing item. It's not a hard game. It's fine because it's accessible, but also I am here already. So it wasn't. That's gonna be a no from me, dog. That's the other thing that's fucking stupid is these fucking Persona babies. I don't know why they cling to Persona like that's the be-all, end-all of JRPGs. They've clearly never played Persona 5. I mean, that game's fucking easy as shit, too. And it has an easy mode, so you could... Maybe they did just play it on easy mode, but, like, you can tell they didn't actually play it. They just probably watched, like, a streamer or something. That's why Atlas said, no streaming. Play it, fuckers. They still didn't do it. I just watched... I played it. I watched a Let's Play. Let us play Persona 5. So I played it. No, you didn't. It's still funny seeing these takes, though, where it's like, oh, there's a difficulty spike. Are you sure, though? Are you sure that was the game? Oh, there's a boss fight in chapter 12 of 15. where they were 20 levels higher. It's a boss fight against two enemies that are 20 levels higher than your party. It's a difficulty spike. And I'm like, was it though? Or did you just not play the game? I think you're leaving out the part where before that boss fight, the game literally stops you and forces you to go to a location and says, hey, you need to grind. That literally the dialogue is, we're about to go fight some tough dudes. We should train. It's literally the game stopping you and saying, shut up, you need to grind. You need to grind. Here is a place you can go where it's just room after room of enemies so that you can grind. And when you beat them, it will give you crafting materials, which you can use to improve your weapons, because you need to do that because you're going to fight a boss fight and you need to grind and have a decent crafted weapon to fight that boss with. You fucking idiot. And you went, no, and then went and did the boss fight and got bodied because you ignored the game. You ignored content in the game that the game told you to do. The game stopped you and said, stop doing the main story. Do this so that you can grind. And you said no, went and got killed by the boss fight, and now you're complaining that there's a difficulty spike? Oh, there was a difficulty spike. Everyone I talked to had trouble with it. They had to grind. Yes, you did have to grind. The game told you to do that. That's you. That ain't the game. That ain't the game, that's you. You left Nifton, went north, and tried to kill the Death Claws and said, what the fuck, I can't kill the Death Claws. The game told you to go south, bro. The game told you to go south. No, there's a difficulty spike. I'm having trouble fighting this thing that I'm not supposed to be fighting yet until after I do all this other shit. I didn't do all that other shit, though. And now I'm having trouble. My entire party was level 60 by the time I got to that boss fight, and it was a legit boss fight. I didn't die in this game once, by the way, against bosses. Like, I fucked around, running around the map and went to some areas that were like higher level than I was, and I just was fucking around and I died, and I was like, oh, you lose half your money. That's kind of funny. That's like a Dragon Quest kind of thing. But I did not die during story sequences. I didn't die against boss fights. Not a one. This game's easy. There's no difficulty spike. It's easy. My entire party was level 60. It was a legit boss fight. I had to pay attention. I didn't die. I still beat it on my first try. This game's easy. I didn't die against... I died against Amon. I did the secret Amon boss fight, and Amon killed me. But that was still my fault, because he has it... It was a one-hit kill move, and that's a little bullshitty, but Ichiban has a move where you can, survive a hit that would normally kill you. So I didn't do that. That's my fault. But still, it's a one-hit kill move, and that's a little bullshitty, but... I died against Amon. Yeah. I think that's okay. I think that's acceptable to die against the secret Amon boss fight. Didn't die against one boss in the entire game. Game's not hard. That's you. That's you, honey. That's you. You skipped the game. You skipped content. You skipped gameplay. The game told you to do it, and you ignored it, and now you're acting like that's the game? No, honey. That's you. That's you doing that. Anyway. So, like, it's fine. I liked it, the gameplay, but, like, it's not good. It's average with some weights around its ankles. It's average, and the fact that it is average is kind of applaudable because it shouldn't be. It should be way worse. The fact that it's average is kind of impressive because this should suck ass, but it doesn't. It works very well. It's fine. It's serviceable. I'm looking forward to their next attempt. I'm looking forward to what they make after this. I hope they make another one, another turn-based RPG, because it's a good time. It didn't have to be bad though. Anyway, like the balance of this game is just fucking ridiculous. There is no balance. Just like have Sayako or Eri in your party as a dealer do the darts move. Watch the boss's health bar just melt. There's no balance in this game. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, like, that's not a bad thing, but still, it's not a good thing either. Anyway, so like, gameplay aside, this is a Yakuza game. It is a Ryuga Gotoku game. It's a JRPG, but it's a Ryuga Gotoku game. It works incredibly well. The story is very good. I liked it a lot. I love Ichiban. Ichiban's amazing. He's so great. Like, I love that. I want to know the backstory of Ichiban being cast and written, because Ichiban's voice actor is Nishiki's voice actor. They got the guy who played Nishikiyama. And I'm wondering, because, like, Nishikiyama has been in a couple of recent Yakuza games. Ryuga Gotoku games. He was in Ryuga Gotoku Ishin. He was in Yakuza 0. He was in Yakuza Kiwami. So he's been back in the studio at Ryuga Gotoku Studios. And I'm wondering if revisiting that character and having him in the story again, and having that voice actor around, killing it, fucking killing it as Nishiki. In some of the scenes in Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami, killing it. I'm wondering if they went like, okay, we want to retire Kiryu. We don't want to keep making Kiryu games. We want to retire him as a character and have a new character. Ya boy, Nishiki, get him in here. Nishiki's dead. Spoilers. Nishiki's not a character anymore, but we can have him be a character again. We can reborn. We can have a reincarnation of Nishiki in in the series, and have Nishiki's voice actor play him. And he's so, like, I'm convinced they wrote Ichiban for this voice actor to be the new Nishiki, basically. Like a hero. A Nishiki who can be a hero. The carp who can become the new dragon. Because Nishiki is defined as being the carp who wants to become the dragon, but fails. He's not going to make it to the top of the stream. He's not going to make it. Spoilers. But Ichiban is the carp who can make it to the top of the stream and can become a dragon. And Ichiban is very overtly, I don't want to say stylized, but like his character arc, his arc of becoming the protagonist of Ryuga Gotoku is modeled after Nishiki's character very closely, because he's got the back tattoo of the carp becoming a dragon, because he wants to be a dragon, but he knows he ain't all that. So he was humble and said, I'll be the carp that's becoming a dragon, because one day I'm going to be the dragon, but right now I'm just the carp. Nishki's character is defined by being the Magikarp who wants to become the Gyarados. And the pivotal boss fight in Ichiban's story is at the top of Millennium Tower against a legendary Yakuza who has a silver dragon back tattoo. Tendo has a tattoo of the blue dragon just like Kiryu. So Ichiban's final boss fight, like the real final boss fight, not the thematic final boss fight, his story concludes with a fight against a thematic parallel to Kiryu. He's fighting the silver dragon, and in so doing, he can ascend to the heavens like a dragon and become a dragon himself. It's very, like, it's a mirror of the ending of Yakuza 1. The ending of Yakuza 1 was Kiryu's the protagonist, but he is Nishki's antagonist, but this is not Nishki's story. In Yakuza Like a Dragon, it's Ichiban's story, and the Kiryu analog is the dragon is his final antagonist, and thus he can overcome it now. It's the same voice actor. It's very intentional, I believe. And he's just a great character. Like, first of all, he's dumb. He's real dumb. He's fucking stupid. And that's great. Like, I talked about it in the video. It's like, I love that he's a low-level thug. He's a dumbass. It's fantastic, but he's got that like, purity, right? He's that sledgehammer. Kind of, like, Kiryu as a character is wise in his, like, simplicity. Like, he doesn't get caught up in the hullabaloo. He's like, I know what's important. But he's not dumb. He just doesn't care about, like, having the higher-minded perspective. It doesn't matter because it's not something he needs to do. It's not a survival necessity for him. He can ignore it, and he can get away with ignoring it because he's just that strong. But he's got that wisdom. He's got the wisdom of knowing what's actually important and knowing what matters. Ichiban has that too. He's got the wisdom. He's got the simplistic, all that shit doesn't matter. All that matters is my friends and doing the thing. And, being there for people and not, and like doing right by people and not exploiting people and standing by the people that, are important to you. And, he's lost his way. I have to, like, that's the thing. Kiryu is wise, but he ain't stupid. Ichiban is wise, but he's fucking dumb. Because he thinks people, like, he looks at a character who's like a little finger ass, like, manipulator, like a sociopath, who's like manipulating people and uses people as resources, and he thinks, you just don't know. He thinks, you don't get it, man. He cares about you. Like, he don't give a shit, dude. Like, you're dumb. He thinks that he literally just has to, like, explain, no, that guy's your dad. And that will make him go, I guess I won't kill him then. Like, no, buddy. No. You're, like, you precious cinnamon bun. No, honey, no. Like, low int. Like, Kiryu has average int, high wisdom. Ichiban has high wisdom, low int. He's fucking stupid. And he's not that strong either. And that's because he's not the dragon yet. He wants to become the dragon, but because it ties into the JRPG combat. Because Kiryu was a one-man army. Even from day one. He was a legend. Everyone knew that he was legit shit, knew he was the real deal, and he knew it too, and he could fucking put the smack down single-handedly. His feats just get out of control as the series goes on. Ichiban is a punk-ass bitch. And he needs the support of his party, of his teammates. He has a minimum of 2, a maximum of 5 people backing him up at any given time, and he would not be able to succeed without their assistance. He is not a one-man army. He's not capable of doing this shit on his own. There's so many cutscenes where, like, he's out of breath and visibly like, oh, fuck, that really took it out of me. And it was just some mid-boss. It was a mini-boss that didn't even matter, and it was a one-on-one. It was like, he's going up against one enemy, and you have a party backing you up, and you're still like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. That was a tough one, guys. And it's like, man, that's how fucking low tier he is. That's how weak his ass is. He's got backup from like 5 other dudes, and he's still wiped out after these boss fights. It's great. And he says, like, I wouldn't be able to do this without my friends. Like, he knows he's shit tier. He knows he can't do it alone. And that's awesome. I love that. That's great. Like, it's such a great, like, it's appropriate because of the genre change of being a turn-based, party-based JRPG. And it's a great contrast to Kiryu. Another great and his story, his character story is really great because, like, he's trash. Like, not just, like, as a fighter, and not just, like, as a person who's, like, an idiot. Like, he's garbage. Like, from the day he was born, he was garbage. Like, he came from nothing. He literally came from nothing. He's like, I'm the child of a prostitute. My dad was some John. My mom bailed. I never knew who they were. I was born in a soapland, in, you know, a whorehouse. I was raised by the gutter waste of society. The pimps, the whores, the bar owners, the smoke shop runners, like the drug dealers. I was raised by the dredges of society. He came from nothing. He was born and raised in a gutter. He's trash. From the day he was born, he was trash. And, like, the thematic revelation he brings to the table by the end of the story is, like, when you're at rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. That's the lesson he, like, imparts. And that is the charisma that allows him to get this party and to improve their lives, and allows him to, like, have a stake in this conflict. Because Yakuza is a shonen anime. It's like, in The Dark Knight Rises and Batman The Dark Knight Rises, Batman fights Bane and his spirit is weak and he loses. And then his body is broken. And then his body heals, he improves his spirit, he, like, revitalizes himself as a person and his will, and like regains his will and his sense of belief. He fights Bane again and he wins because his spirit is stronger than Bane's now. And in Dark Knight Rises, that doesn't work because Dark Knight Rises is trying to be, like, the Nolan Batman movies are, like, down to earth and realistic, and, like, it doesn't make sense in The Dark Knight Rises that he would beat Bane because his willpower is stronger now. And he's not, like, outsmarting him. He's not using some new gadget. He's not using a superior fighting style. The Batman, like, he doesn't do anything different. So it's a little bullshitty. The intention is, oh, his spirit is greater than Bane's now. And that's what allows him to win, but it doesn't work in Batman. But in Yakuza, which is a shonen-ass anime, that does work. Why is Kiryu so strong? It's not because he's hitting the gym. It's because he's right. It's because he has the moral purity of spirit. It's because he has a greater willpower, and he's fighting for what's right, and he knows what he's doing is right, and he has self-assurance. And he's not just beating you up. He's like, you're wrong. This is a philosophical debate in fisticuff form. That's why Kiryu is so strong. And Ichiban is able to do that. Like, he's shithouse, but and like he's not always like on the straight and narrow. Because like there's at one point where he's like he's had a rough ass day, shit's bad, it's his lowest moment, and he's losing his fucking mind and like teetering on the edge, and a mentor character has to show up and be like, dude, you need to take a chill pill. I know shit's rough. I get it. The world is crumbling down around you right now, and that sucks. But this is not what you need to do. You need to, like, splash some fucking water on your face and figure out what actually matters to you. Because you're not going to be able to handle this shit unless you, like, straighten yourself out here. And that's like a pivotal moment in his development. Because he's flying, he's really just flying, like, he doesn't get it. Like, he has the righteousness, but he doesn't have the perspective to really use it. He again, he's like having a conversation with the villain, and it's like, that's wrong. Why would you do that? Don't you realize that that's wrong? Like, he doesn't get that other people don't see things his way. You can't convince someone that they're wrong if you think that they don't know. If you think they agree with you, or that they're just ignorant, you're never going to convince them. If you think they think the same way that I do, they just don't have the information that I have. It's that social justice warrior thing where it's like, they think everyone agrees with them, and either we're just pretending we don't maliciously, intentionally, or that we just don't know any better. If you knew better, you would agree with me because I'm right. It's like, I know that I'm, and like, even if you are on the, like, if you have the right perspective and you are, you know, in terms of maximizing human happiness and minimizing human suffering, you have the right idea. You're not going to convince anyone if you don't understand, if you don't have the emotional and empathetic capacity to put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from. You're not going to be able to convince them that they're wrong. And that's the problem Ichiban has throughout most of the story until near the end, when the mentor character literally goes like, think about what you would do if you were them. Not if you were you standing where they are. Think about if you were not you, but you were them instead. What would you think? How would you feel? And like, that's how you outsmart your opponent, because you got to see yourself from their perspective so that you know what their weakness is and how to exploit it. It's like a lesson in pragmatism, but it is also the lesson of, like, this is how you win. This is how you convince them that they're wrong. Because you can't just beat them up in a shonen anime like this. You're not going to win by beating them up and killing them. You win by convincing them that you are right and they are wrong with your fists. That's what it comes down to in a story like this. And when Ichiban figures that out, that's when he starts, like, ascending the stream and rising to the heavens. But until then, like, he's dumb and he doesn't get it, but he does have the tools. He has the moral purity. He, like, once he realizes they don't get it, I have to explain it to them. That's when he starts coming out with his philosophy of, like, when you're at rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. and he has the perspective to really drive that home because he's human trash. He was born trash. He came from nothing. He was meant for nothing. He should have died a nobody in a pauper's grave. Like he was meant, his fate was to be nothing. And why was that? Because his fate was taken by someone else. And that gets into like there's one thing about the games, and man, that's how you know this voice actor really killed. I played in the Japanese dub. I didn't hear the English dub. Apparently Roger Craig Smith was in this game. Holy shit. Sonic the Hedgehog, the 6th chairman of the Tojo clan. Yeah. I played with the Japanese dub. And this is how you know that this voice actor's killing it, because he's bringing the emotion to the table and making you really feel with this character, even though intellectually I'm like, fuck this guy. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about anything that's happening. This guy sucks. He needs to go. But Ichiban's like, dude, I fucking love you. Don't you get it? Don't you get that people care about you? And he's like crying and screaming and like, listen to me, man. Don't you get it? You fucking idiot. People care about you. You have to do this. You have to be this way. And it's like, oh, Ichiban. It's like, oh man, you're really getting me. You're really making me feel. You're really making me feel what this character's feeling. And that's what a good performance can do. Right? There was one part of the ending that I'm like, that's a little fucky. That's a little fuck you-y. Right? Because there's story contrivances. And those aren't always a problem. Because, like, that's a nitpick. Oh, this is contrived. That's a nitpick. What matters is what was done in the story. Because there's a revelation halfway through the game. That's like, here's a revelation. Your backstory is not what you thought it was. Here's what really happened. And it's like, that's a contrivance. But it works because it's thematically appropriate. Because, minor spoilers, you saw in the video that I did, the coin locker baby story, there was another coin locker baby. There were 2 coin locker babies in the same coin lockers. That same wall of coin lockers. And you're like, for unrelated reasons, there were 2 different coin locker babies. And you're like, that's a little contrived. But then you find out the coin locker babies were right next to each other. One of the babies was in coin locker 100. The other baby was in coin locker 99. They were coin locker neighbors. And he found the wrong baby. And you're like, that's not a contrivance. That is fate. That is the hand of destiny. Like, reaching down and pulling the strings of these characters' lives. And so, like, it's so over the top that it wraps back around to meaning something. Because 2 coin locker babies, born on the same night, both hidden away into the coin lockers by 2 different sets of parents who happen to, like, meet each other later in life and stuff like that. That's a contrivance. But 2 coin locker babies being put into coin lockers right next to each other, that's above and beyond. That wraps all the way back around to, like, this matters. This means something. There's a purpose here. There's a reason that this happened. Everything happens for a reason kind of thing. In, like, some stories, fate is a real thing. That you have to accept that, this is a present force in the force. This is a force in the universe that is ordaining its influence and directing these characters' lives. And Yakuza is one of, like, Batman don't got no destiny, but in Yakuza, in the world of Rigagatoku, fate is a thing that exists, and characters can try and fight against it, or, like, be stringed along and play their role, or they can embrace it and, like, make the most of it. And it's that Harry Potter thing of, like, so I'm the chosen one. I was prophesized to do this, and, like, that makes me uncomfortable. And Dumbledore's like, if there weren't no prophecy, what would you do? And he'd be like, I do the thing that I'm prophesized to do. Like, it doesn't, it's not that you're meant to do this. It's, this is what you would have done anyway. But it's still, like fate chose you, not because you have no choice, but because this is what you would have chosen. It's the hand of fate, like, interacting with your life. And fate took Ichiban's, the life that Ichiban was meant to have by all rights. He should have had this life. He should have had the life of being raised by his biological father. That was meant to be. And fate took that away from him and gave it to this other character instead, this other baby. Why? So that Ichiban could be raised and grow up to be the man that he needs to be in order to make the world a better place. Because the main villain of this game was born, like, circumstances were fucked up, but he wanted for nothing. Life was handed to him on a silver platter. He never had to struggle. He was treated as fragile, so he never had to work for anything. He was given everything, and he took it for granted. He felt entitled. He exploited the system. He felt no affection or loyalty to anyone or anything. People were just more resources that he felt entitled to and should be able to do whatever he wanted with. And that was the life that was in store for Ichiban until it was taken away from him. And he was born into a life of garbage instead. And it was only from that experience, that life experience, that he could have the perspective of, once you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. And that's the truth he tries to impart on the villain, on the... Jesus fucking Christ. Changed on my robe because people be fucking with me. Where was I? Like, and that's the truth that he, like, has to, like, pound into the main villain who, you know, like, felt entitled, who never had to work for nothing. He's like, look, man, the only way you're going to, like, get out of this is you have to hit rock bottom. And then you have to rise back up. I know you can do it, but the only way to straighten you out is to bring you down to rock bottom, because once you're there, there's nowhere to go but up. And he gets it. He's almost there. He gets his happy ending. He, like, convinces him. He's like, dude, I care about you. I want to help you. You can have a good life. You were given everything, but you squandered it. But now I can show you the way. Like, I can help you learn how to, like, you can appreciate life. And the main villain's like, sweet. He's like, okay, I can do this. We can do this. I can do it. I'm going to accept your way of life as being correct, Ichiban. And then, story contrivance, you're dead. It, like, a meteor might as well have fallen out of the sky and hit him in the face and killed him instantly, for all the difference it makes. For all, like, that is the equivalent of what happens. Like, a character who shouldn't have any reason to be there, and who shouldn't have had any ability to, like, he just happened to find them. Like, what? Like, that's a story contrivance that's bullshit. It's like, you literally just, like, made this character drop dead for no reason, out of nowhere, because of a total contrivance, just to take that happy ending away from Ichiban. And it's like, that's a little shitty. I don't like that. Like, it's one thing when a character dies because they're like, I'm gonna ride or die. I know you're right and I'm wrong, but it's too far, and I'm gonna say fuck it and just go out in a blaze of glory. That's what Nishiki did. But Ichiban's main villain goes, you're right, I'm gonna do things your way, dead. Killed. Meteor came out of the sky and hit him, he's dead. That's stupid. Why would you do that? I didn't like it. But aside from that, on the whole, and then like it, like all the Yakuza games always got like that social commentary thing going on because they're very present. They're set in the time and place that they were made. Like Yakuza 3 had this whole real estate scheme going on, and it's like that's happening right now. That's a thing that's happening back in 2000 like fucking 9, right? And it's very it's got its finger on the pulse of society, right? It's very it's kind of breaking down the foundation of the series too, because the games have always been about glorifying the Yakuza and romanticizing the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia. This is a game that's going like, that don't fly no more. Like, partially because it's still partially romanticizing, because being like, oh man, you're just like a Yakuza back. I thought there were no more Yakuza like you anymore, but you're from back in the day. You're an old school, like, legit cool guy Yakuza. I thought those were all gone. Respect. So it's still glorifying it a little bit by, like, being like, no, they used to be cool. But it is going like, the Yakuza are done. It's incorporating, like, a real life thing that they're stomping down on the organized crime in Japan in the way that, like, La Cosa Nostra, like the mafia in America, got taken out. They're finally starting to have those real, like, crime organization, police, like, law enforcement tools, and it's acknowledging, like, nah, these guys are shit. They're fucking up society. They gotta go. And that's another reason that they're probably rebranding it, trying to rebrand it from Yakuza to being like a dragon, because there ain't no more yakuzee to anymore. Things are changing. The world is changing, and it manages to do like a political intrigue kind of plot, which is like, because there's like three kinds of Yakuza plots. There's personal, which is stuff like Yakuza 1 and 2, where the reason for the conflict is based on a personal journey that the character needs to undergo. There's legacy plots, which are stories like Yakuza 4 and Yakuza 5, which are based on, this is like fallout from a past event, and it's continuing an ongoing drama that we might not have been aware about previously, but it's only happening because something happened before to cause it to happen. It's like a domino effect kind of a thing. And then there's political conflicts, which is stuff like Yakuza 3, and to a minor degree Yakuza 6. Yakuza 6 is kind of jumbled, but like Yakuza 3 was like, we gotta do the real estate scheme because of the resort, in order to find out, because we're working with the CIA to find an international arms smuggling organization called Black Monday. And it's like, what the fuck is happening? So Yakuza 7 is doing the political intrigue plot, where it's like, the main villain is like, I'm gonna win the election and become the governor and take control of Japan's, like, political seat of power and institute my will over the country. And it does it pretty well, and it goes to a lot of places with it, and I think it's strengthened by the fact that it doesn't take place in Kamurocho, which I do like. Kamurocho takes a back seat in this game. It's still in the game, but the primary location is a new city, and it's great. It works because this is Ichiban City. This is not like Kamurocho is like Kiryu's town. Like, it's communal, but it's also like, it's Kiryu's city. And like, everyone goes there. That's where it be happening. But Ichiban City is Yokohama, and that work. I like it. The fact that like 90% of this story does not take place in Kamurocho plays to its strengths. I think the story was really well done. The fact that it is kind of like fresh. It's about, like I said this, that Yakuza 1 story is the only story that's about Kiryu. It's the only story, like, again, to a minor degree, Yakuza 6. But it's the only story that's about Kiryu and his personal journey. And by the end of that game, he is a different person than he was at the beginning of that game. The fact, and after that, there's nowhere for his character to go. So every game after Yakuza 1 is Kiryu getting involved in something else and him learning nothing from it, basically. Like, that's not a bad thing, you know. That's the you know, the Mad Max wanderer, you know, Hokuto no Ken idea of character is stagnant and he shows up in this new location and meets these new characters and gets involved in their story and helps facilitate their narrative. That's not a bad thing, but the first game is buoyed by the fact that it is Kiryu's story. And none of the other ones are. So this game, it's Ichiban's story. It is about Ichiban as a character. It's introducing him as a character, and it's showing him grow and develop and become a new protagonist. He is a different person at the end of this game than he was at the beginning of the game. So on that aspect of it, it is one of the better stories of the series. Like, I would say Yakuza 1's one of the best ones, if not the best. Yakuza 2 is ranked up there also, although it's a little complicated. 3 is pretty low. 3 is one of the worst stories in the series. 4 is pretty good, but it has pacing issues. 5 is good, but it does not work as a standalone story. You need the backstory. You need to do homework in order to really get the most out of Yakuza 5 story. 6 is fine. It's pretty low. I would put it above 3, but it's also pretty weak. And then Yakuza 0, hot take, also has a pretty weak story, I would say, for most of it. And it has the same problem where Kiryu is just getting involved in someone else's drama. But at least in all of the other games where Kiryu is getting involved in someone else's drama, he is his own character. In Yakuza 0, Kiryu has not yet become a character yet. Like, it's set before Yakuza 1, the game that was Kiryu's story. So it's pre-complete self-actualized character Kiryu getting involved in someone else's conflict, and then that conflict ends, and he's the same character at the end of Yakuza 0 that he was at the beginning of Yakuza 0, because it's not time for him to have his character development yet. Anyway, like, it works for Majima, at least. It works for the other protagonist in that game, but Kiryu does not. And the fact that they have to share screen time kind of takes away from what is effective about that game's story. So, like, I would put Yakuza 7 up there. I'd probably put it second to the first game in terms of how strong the story is in being Ichiban's story. And the fact that he has, again, the fact that it's a JRPG and he has a party and it's not just a one-man show like it is with Kiryu, elevates it. Because they have all these scenes of, like, you're my nakama, you're my nakama, you're my friend, you're my party member, you're my buddy, we're in this, like, blood brothers, like, we're in this together. Because they are party members in the JRPG party, like, really makes for some fantastic scenes. Where it's like, you really believe that these characters would be ride or die, like, with Ichiban. Because that's always a big problem with JRPGs, where it's like, why are these guys, like, traveling together? Why are these guys, like, fighting to the death with each other?
something I touched on in the Final Fantasy VII, where, you know, they're all traveling together for their own reasons. They're not really a party, but as the story goes on, they become close knit and like dedicated to each other as a group. You see that with this game, and it's because of Ichiban's charisma, where he finds people once they've hit rock bottom and shows them, well, you're here. Let me show you the light. Look up. See that light? There's nowhere to go but up. Once you've hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. And that, like, the fact that Ichiban brings that perspective to these people when they're at their lowest moment and elevates them and like uplifts them, makes the fact that they're like, yeah, Ichiban, we're here with you. We're gonna like, we're your friends, and we are going to like risk our lives and put everything on the line for your sake because you were there for us. And then he appreciates that, and he's like, man, like, I owe you guys so much, like, I don't even know how to pay you back. Like, it's real, like, yeah, it's a real feel good, like, buddy kind of vibe, where it's like, yeah, you believe these characters are all like lifelong friends at this point, and the fact that they're like all older men, for the most part, like they're in their 40s, like they're middle-aged men, is also really fun and unique too. So yeah, Yakuza 7, good game. I liked it. My throat hurts. I'm gonna eat. Goodbye.